In this lecture, we will show you how to use the G-Lite middleware components to submit jobs to the grid, get status information and retrieve the output files. We will go through the entire workflow of submitting one job, checking its status and retrieving the output. Let's first start with a discussion on what the grid middleware actually is. The grid middleware is a software stack to organize and integrate grid resources. You can think of this as an additional software layer on top of the software that is needed for cluster computing. As we have already seen in previous lectures, you can submit jobs to a cluster using, for example, PBS. The grid middleware adds a layer of abstraction which allows you to transparently use different batch scheduling systems to run jobs across different sites. And the same goes for how different data storage solutions can be accessed. The middleware also takes care of communication between sites, bookkeeping, security and resource allocation. The middleware we use in this course is called G-Lite. We first met G-Lite commands when we used the G-Lite WMS job delegate proxy command to delegate our credentials to the WMS. G-Lite comes from a number of current and past grid projects like Globus, EGI and EMI. The G-Lite middleware is currently installed in grid sites participating in the worldwide LHC computing grid project, one of the largest communities involved in grid technology and basically the resource dedicated to computing for the Large Hadron Collider project. Other middleware distributions offer similar commands as those used by G-Lite. So let's first take a look at how we can submit jobs using this middleware. So we'll begin again just on the laptop that we've used before and log into the user interface machine. This is the machine that we use where all the credentials are already stored. So we're in, and we'll just go to the directory where we keep the examples and make another one for our first job submission. So we go in there and we'll edit the first JDL that we'll specify for this course. Right. So we begin by specifying the job type, which is used internally by the WMS to make sense of what you try to do. Keep in mind that when you specify the JDLs, you will always have to enter each line with a semicolon, otherwise it won't work. We'll specify job type as normal. And we'll have to specify the application that we want to run on the grid. And here we'll use the hostname command, which is located on each and every one of the machines that are available on the grid. So in this case you're executing an application that's already located on the machine, so you won't have to send the application with your job to that worker node. So we can specify some arguments to the application. We just do the -f flag. So we now need to redirect the standard out and standard error to files. We do this to be able to retrieve those messages that would normally be printed to the command line. And you will see that once we retrieve the sandboxes, that these files are included. And hopefully once the application is run, so the bin hostname application is run, the output of that command will end up in simple.out. So we now need to specify which content we need to have sent to the worker node and the stuff that we want to get back from the worker node to the user interface machine. And here you specify the output sandbox, which should include the two redirected files, the simple.out and simple.error. So there we go. You can also specify a number of retries that you want the grid middleware to do on your behalf. So what happens is, if the job crashes for whatever reason, for example a worker node crashes due to an operating system error, you want to be able to let the middleware decide for you to retry this. So we here just check whether a valid proxy is available, and it isn't. So we'll create one, and as you can see we have done all the 3 steps that we discussed before. So we now have a valid proxy. There you have it. The proxy is available for 7 days. Now we can submit a JDL to the grid. And the delegation ID, which is given by the -D flag, is usually, when you use the start grid session script, the name of the user that is currently using the system. We use the -O flag to store the identifiers of the jobs that we are submitting to a file, which in this case the file will be called job IDs. And this comes in handy when you are submitting multiple jobs at once and you need to retrieve information of one particular job. And the last argument to this command is just the JDL itself. And you could use shorthand for this by just specifying a file in the current directory. So here you see the identifier of the job that we just submitted. And of course it specifies that it also saved the identifier to this particular file. And if you do this multiple times for the same file, it will just append the information to the identifier to the end of the file. It won't override it. So we can now ask for the job status, and normally for one job you can just specify the identifier, or if you have multiple jobs you can use the -I flag and direct it to the file that we just used to save the identifier in, and it will list the status of all the jobs specified in that particular file. So for all the job IDs in that file it will retrieve the status, and as you can see it's already running. You can use that same identifier in your browser if you have your grid certificate installed there to see the status over there. It will ask for your approval to use the certificate to identify yourself. And when you click OK, you see that this same status information that we retrieved before is now also available in your web browser. Again, almost the same information. And you can see that there's actually some more information available here where also the information that was available in your JDL is listed. So it's a convenient method for seeing what the job identifier actually refers to. At some point you will submit a job that for some reason you don't want to have executed, for example because you send the wrong version of your application. Don't worry, it happens to us all. However, you now want to cancel that job. You can use the glide-wms job cancel command to cancel a job that you have submitted. Like the other commands that we've seen, like job status and job output, this command has the -I option, which uses a file with job IDs as arguments. In this case you can retrieve or cancel multiple jobs at the same time, or if you just want to cancel the one job, you just specify the identifier of the job that you want to see cancelled. You can then also see the job status online, as we've shown in the previous screencast, and you will see that the status becomes cancelled. So let's now see what you need to do when everything did go smoothly and you now want to retrieve the job output. So we're back to the identifiers or the job that we submitted earlier, and by now it has completed. So I want to retrieve the job output files. The way to do that is just the glide-wms job output command, and we can just give the job identifier that we've used before. And we want the output to be copied to the directory that we're currently in, so we use the dir option of the command. Of course, we can also use the -i option to just use the file that we use to save the job identifiers in. And it will now retrieve the output of all the identifiers of all the jobs in that file. And the data will be located over here. And as you can see, we have now the simple error and simple out files that we specified in the JDL, which contain the standard out and standard error of our job. And as you can see, the output of the hostname command is what you see highlighted over here. And if you check the browser for the same job, it is now cleared. And that's basically it.